This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.
Safe and sound. Keep our workplace safe and sound.
Talk
Safe
Radio
and sound.
790 KABC. You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, and I'm Karl Gerber, a real workplace lawyer. Just in from the news desk for the Grammy Awards, Carly Simon has won Best New Artist and the Song of the Year with You've Got a Friend by Carole King. Tonight we have a small business owner who I met on one of my many job sites. He's a licensed general contractor who has struggled to comply with California labor laws, partially as a result of the available workforce. I present to you Jaime.
Hola. I'm really nervous. I've never been on a mic before. Between you and me, I don't know if I can do this.
I don't know if I could do this either. These shows are extremely painful. Take for last week, for instance, our guest changed his voice on me 6 times.
Yeah, man, I have a cousin that deals with that, but I won't be doing that to you.
But you did pull a number on me when...
Hey, you said we wouldn't be talking about none of that, you know?
We'll head straight to the embarrassing legal issues. I notice on the California State Contractors License Board website, you indicate you do not carry workers' compensation insurance because you don't have any employees.
Yeah, I don't have any employees.
Then who are those people I noted to be cutting 2x4s they held with one hand and a circular saw in the other?
Yeah, I don't know those guys.
When I approached them, they said they were with you.
Well, I'm not sure who you're talking about.
The men in question are one person who drove a flame blue F-150, a rather good-looking truck, and a quite short man who drove a desert color sand Hummer.
Did they have any tattoos? That's how I know the people on the job site.
The short man had a tattoo with I would say androgynous-looking fire-breathing dragon on his left forearm. The driver of that neat-colored F-150 had a tattoo on his neck that said, "Nice guy" in Spanish.
Yeah, like I told you, I don't know any of those guys. How can you tell if a dragon is androgynous anyway? Like, I would like to know that for future reference, huh?
Did you ask them to show up to the job site I met you on? I can't disclose whose job site that is due to privacy interests, and to tell you the truth, I'm not really sure how to sex a fire-breathing dragon.
And the guy with the Hummer, he just started showing up, and he was friends with the guy with the old white Ford Ranger.
I don't have a great recollection of the guy with the white Ford Ranger. Can you help me out with an identifying tattoo?
Whew, man, that's a lot. Wow, that guy has so many tattoos. Where do I start?
Well, somewhere or something unusual.
Oh, okay. He's got a tattoo on his butt of Molly Machete using a Remus Helms doll to commit non-sexual buggery on a terrorist. The cyanide capsule and all.
Oh, with that said, where do we even start? How did you happen to notice this butt tattoo? What possessed the driver of the old Ford Ranger? And thrice, how do you know it was non-sexual buggery opposed to something else?
Do I really have to say this on the radio?
It might be better if you didn't say.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it.
We could have avoided all of this IDing of your workers by their unusual tattoos and trucks if you just got them to fill out a W-4. Employers are supposed to furnish their employees W-4 forms before they start to work, get their social security number and identifying information.
Hey, you know where I could find one of those?
On the internet?
Wow. Well, I'll see if my daughter can do that. She's good with the computers, but They put on what you save search because my step grandson he was reading too much inappropriate stuff.
What was he reading?
He's not a blood relative or nothing like that, but my daughter she's only 21, but she married George. I mean Jorge, who's 36. Anyway, he's got a 14-year-old who get this. First, he read your website, employeelawca.com.
What's wrong with my website?
Oh man, ay Dios mío. It's got all those crazy labor laws I don't follow.
And this is a problem?
Well, see, then we found out my step-grandson was reading this weird stuff about the devil being a Puerto Rican in a steam room, and there's no exit from there.
Personally, I think that's a weird interpretation of a Jean-Paul Sartre play.
Man, that guy was weird.
I don't know how weird he is, but I named my firstborn after him.
Hey, I mean, if that's the way you roll.
Back to the legal dilemma. Was the man with the neat colored F-150 truck or the Hummer paid by you?
That would be no.
Did these two men just work from 7 a.m. to 2 or 3 for a few weeks because they were contributing to a non-profit cause?
Sure, man. Jose paid them. Yeah, Jose paid them.
Who is Jose?
He's my foreman.
Just because Jose paid them doesn't mean they weren't your employees.
I never said they weren't my employees.
You said you didn't know them or pay them. Jose does work for you, doesn't he?
I mean, he's just like a guy that I've known for a really long time.
Does he work for you?
Not just me. He works for other contractors, too.
How many hours a week does he work for you?
Yeah, well, that depends.
Does he generally work for you during a week?
Most days.
I mean, this is a confidential attorney-client privilege communication. No one can hear other than all the radio and internet listeners. Could be 10,000 tonight. Could be 10,000 in the weeks and months ahead.
Oh, well, then how is it this conversation confidential?
It isn't. But I'm going to call it confidential, just like you say, Jose isn't your employee and the rest of the people aren't either.
Just because somebody says something doesn't that make it true?
No. And saying something clearly wrong or erroneous impeaches the speaker's credibility. It makes them deemed a liar.
I mean, well, we're just talking, right?
Well, although this conversation isn't under oath, there is a recorded broadcast record. Even if there wasn't, if I wasn't a lawyer, the people who are here, like the sound engineer and the Windex operator, I mean dope waxer, could be asked what you said, and answers like he's not my employee could impeach you.
Peach? In a peach?
Impeachment means to discredit somebody, that they are not telling the truth. They lied. They might be a liar about other matters as well.
Oh, that's some heavy accusations there. You're accusing me of being a liar? I'm no mentiroso. I mean, are you saying I'm a lawyer?
They're not the same. I'm trying to explain that by claiming man with really neat tattoos aren't your employees because your foreman paid them out of your funds, that's testimony that makes you sound like you aren't telling the truth, not credible.
I thought those guys were independent contractors.
Were they licensed contractors?
I mean, not that I know of.
You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Karl Gerber. If you happen to have been an employee of Turnkey Vacation Rentals and weren't paid properly, I'd like you to call me at the office at 877-525-0700. If you've got calls about on-call work or other pay situations, whether or not you worked at Turnkey Vacation rentals, I'd like to talk to you at 877-525-0700. Once again, we are representing turnkey vacation rental employees who were not paid properly. We can be reached at 877-525-0700 for that labor matter or any other labor matter. When we come back, we're going to find out more about the contractor Jaime, who doesn't seem to put people on his payroll and thought by having some other guy pay him, that would avoid him being responsible for them of employees. Well, thank you for listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We'll be back in just one moment.
Safe and sound. Keep our workplace safe.
Yeah, Talk Radio 790 KBC. You're listening to Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, always trying to update you on what's going on at the Grammys. So, John Lennon did not win for Imagine. The song has to come out by September in order to be part of the 1971 Grammys. Paul McCartney did win for Best Arranger and Uncle Elbert, and John Lennon did win for Let It Be for the Best Original Score in a Motion Picture. So we'll keep you going with those Grammys. We've got Jaime in the studio, who's a contractor. I had the misfortune of running into on one of my job sites. So yeah, I'm also a lawyer. So Jaime, this doesn't the rule about not accepting more than $500 for any one particular job if you aren't a licensed contractor prevent the tattoo guys from ever being independent contractors on your crew?
A lot of people with tattoos are independent contractors. It gets pretty hard to find a job once you've had a bad or maybe homemade facial tattoos. Besides, the guy with the F-150 made $200 a day, cash money. The Hummer guy, he got $150.
He got $150 for a Hummer?
How should I know? I mean, Jose paid them.
Is this how you know it's on the guy's butt with the white Ford Ranger?
Jose didn't tell me that. I mean, the guy with the butt tattoo, he bends down a lot when he does plumbing jobs for me.
Wait a minute. The aforementioned tattooed people were paid in cash? Like I didn't already know that?
You can't pay a worker by check.
Oh, maybe not, but you better issue them a wage statement indicating their gross pay, net pay, all taxes taken, things like that.
I mean, taxes are included in the pay those guys got.
The $150 for the Hummer included state and federal taxes. Well, that's great, but they still need pay stubs, and the employer still has to pay the employer's taxes.
If I do it like that, I mean, nobody will work for me.
And thus the problem.
I mean, after the recession and all the immigration roundup stuff, it's hard to get workers.
I agree.
If I told the guys here, your hour rate, here's how many hours you've worked, and I got a company to run the taxis, none of those guys would even work for me.
Well, this is a problem in the construction industry.
Well, there's nothing I can do. Everybody does it this way.
I handle quite a few lawsuits against construction companies every year, and there are companies that tax their employees and give them pay stubs, too. Not necessarily accurate pay stubs, fuss my involvement.
I mean, well, they get sued anyway.
Well, you have to at least try to follow the labor laws, but if you're just trying and not doing a particularly good job at it, you will be sued.
See? I'll get sued anyways.
Well, if you aren't taxing your employees, besides a lawsuit against them or from them, you're going to be fined big time by the Franchise Tax Board and other government agencies.
Yeah, I know, but I've got a corporation.
There are now multiple labor laws that allow employees or the Department of Labor to go against you if you aren't paying their wages or properly providing pay stubs.
Yeah, I had another construction company. I had to close it down. There was a big mix-up about the water supply and this organic food making place. The sewage was going into the soy mixing drum instead of down the drain, and they blamed me. But I never plumbed the soy mixing drum, so to make a story that's short, long, and a little less boring, What was I saying now? Oh yeah. The government they kept sending me bills about owing all kinds of taxes, and one day I called them up and I told them I had nothing, and I never heard from them again.
This is why I don't sue small employers. It may well be impossible to collect from them if there is a judgment or even a settlement. We had one case from a repeat client who tends to work for contractors who don't pay him. On this second case, they never responded to the lawsuit. We got a default judgment against the company and couldn't collect it.
That's exactly what I do.
Man. And next issue. Since these two guys and the others who showed up were your employees, you have to get workers' compensation insurance.
How do I do that?
Now, from what I've heard, State Fund might be willing to work with you if you were previously uninsured. It's a carrier.
Well, they wanted like 10,000 when I had one or two guys. I used to pay by check. Just in case you need to know, I mean, it was the guy with the Toyota Tundra who didn't have any tattoos, and the guy with the Dodge Caravan that had squiggly yellow lines on his shoulder and a big X through somebody's name.
Look, if you can't afford to abide by the labor laws and carry workers' compensation insurance, you can't use others for your construction projects.
But that's the thing. I just like to help build things.
That may be, and it might be admirable, but as a California employer, you have to abide by California labor laws and United States labor laws, which require you to tax your employees, pay the employer's portion of taxes, and so on.
Yeah, well, that may be, and it might be admirable, but if I move to Nevada, there's still some atomic testing cleanup work there. If I were only in the toxic waste hauling business.
Nah, employer contributions for Social Security are federal. So are a lot of other taxes. I suspect every state requires workers' compensation insurance. And the business model you have won't legally work anywhere in this country. Besides, I don't think people would pay you as generously in another state.
I know you found out I charged 10,000 to move the header over the big sliding door in the snuff and jug wine room. There was a lot of work to do.
I prefer to think of that as the plonk room. Snuff is too heavy for me. I suspect the lumber ran you under 1,000, and the whole thing took about 5 hours for 2 of the 6 uniquely tattooed laborers you had on the job.
It's all about regulations. I have to charge.
You aren't complying with regulations such as perhaps safety training, providing your crew with water.
They can drink the jug of wine too. All of my employees are safe. They've been in the business for 10, 20 years, even more.
I mean, you have a lot of rationalizations for the way you run your business, which doesn't comply with United States or California law.
There haven't been any accidents in 5 years, and all that happened was Alfombra got his finger sewn up. That's it.
Alfombra, doesn't that mean rug?
He had this, how do you say, this thing on his head. It was, I don't want to say crazy looking. It looked like a real rug.
Would the product happen to have been an ever-growing Berber toupee that is really nylon and has to be tampumed many times a day to keep its growth down?
Yeah, the guy had a little vacuum that trimmed the thing he wore. What happened is a funny guy we took it's like the steel that you have with the reciprocating blades for cutting hedges, but mine wasn't as nice.
One of your employees attempted to use a hedge trimmer to cut another employee's ever-growing Berber toupee?
Yeah, but hey, they were my employees.
I thought we were over this failure to take responsibility thing, calling your workers not employees.
That was like, how do you say, horseplay. None of that happened because somebody didn't know how to do their job.
More rationalization.
Excuse me, hold on. I have to take this call.
Oh, go right ahead. Talk to your customer for tomorrow while we're recording in the studio. Don't mind me. I'll just ask if you persist in claiming all of your employees exercise safety, if they use one hand to operate a circular saw and another hand to hold up a 2x4 in the midair.
Okay, what's that?
Ever heard the expression, 2 hands on the saw?
No, I can't say that I have.
Oh, well, as a building contractor, your employees use a lot of dangerous tools, come in contact with chemicals like soy. Their potentials of slipping and falling on tempumed Berber, regardless of whether the employees claim they have loads of experience or loads of something else. The employer needs to ensure they are operating in a safe manner.
Yeah, man. I've got experienced workers, and yeah, I've got a lot of other jobs that I have to go to as well.
I've always wondered about the general supervision of a building contractor. At least for lawyers, we can't have unlicensed people, tattooed or not, doing the work. If there are employees who are not licensed, we have to very closely monitor them.
Hey, that's right. I don't have to monitor my people all the time. I mean, no contractor ever does that.
There are differences between licensing requirements and other laws. For instance, you are liable for workplace injuries and have a general duty to provide a safe workplace regardless of whether your employees can perform work when you're on another job site.
Hey, these guys I have, they don't listen. I mean, they never wore any ear protection, so do you think that they can even hear anything by now?
You could hire a third-party safety company if you're not familiar with things like 2 hands on the saw and you won't lose any fingers.
Yeah, but I can't afford that.
I'm not seeing how you could afford to be sued in normal tort if your employee got injured because you don't have workers' comp insurance. Look, these are all problems we run into as labor lawyers when we're suing small employers and contractors that unfortunately I've come in contact with on jobs I work in the construction industry. So you're listening to Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show. I am really a licensed lawyer in California, and if you have an issue with rent credits and you work for FPI management, I would appreciate a call. We have a putative class action. I can be reached at 877-525-0700. If you're an FPI management employee and you had a rent credit that seemed a bit too high, I can be reached at 877-525-0700. Any other wage and hour problems, any other employment problems, 877-525 for a real workplace lawyer. We'll be back in just one moment.
Work looked like fun. They dig through dirt and they saw the wood. They hammer nails all day long. And sound.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, being live broadcast from downtown trendy Culver City this not rainy Sunday night. And I do apologize. I was broadcasting information about a Grammy Award that was in 1971 and it's 2019. Okay, Jaime, we were talking to you before we broke. You're the contractor that doesn't seem to be following the labor laws. What else do you have to say for yourself?
Well, I just like to let you know I've worked in the construction profession for 40 years.
I'd say you're in your 40s. How is that possible?
So I started construction when I was 5, and my dad, he used to bring me onto the job sites, and my tío, he had a repaving business. Actually, it was a driveway repainting business.
His uncle.
Yeah, I started working for him, telling customers it was new asphalt when I was 9. Did it after school.
Sounds real reputable. Simply adding up the number of years one has been in a profession is not the barometer of whether they know how to operate a safe workplace.
Yeah, I try not to take on big jobs because it's too much paperwork.
Labor laws even apply on the smaller jobs.
Yeah, well, I know you're an expert on prevailing wage jobs. I once worked on one of those, and it almost broke me having to pay over $36 an hour for general laborers.
The rates are even more for your framers and skilled trades.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said everybody was a general laborer.
Oh boy, you're not supposed to do that. You paid everyone the lowest prevailing wage rate for the job, regardless of whether that was their trade?
Oh, yeah. That was my wife's idea. She's a real sharp chocolate chip cookie with the M&Ms instead of the chocolate chips.
M&M. I can't even hear that name anymore without thinking about Myron Alfombra, pronounced Matting and spelled M&M.
Yeah, I heard about him on the TV. He's going to get this country to make women only have one sanitary napkin for their whole menstrual career. It's supposed to be ever-growing, just like those toupees he makes.
I'd sure like to do something about that hair-brained, sorry for the pun, idea of Alfombra et al.
I mean, the only thing I like to say about the one sanitary napkin per woman policy is I've run into a couple jobs personally, new home constructions where the sewage backs up right away as soon as the new homeowner moves in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out that it was clogged with a bunch of sanitary napkins, but, nobody's even lived there yet.
Yeah, I was once the builder of one of those joints. There were also accusations the portable potties were backed up with sanitary napkins.
Were there any mujeres working there?
There weren't any women construction workers, and that was the odd thing about it.
Maybe it's like that guy you had on last week who talked about jokes so funny they make the listener's rectum erupt.
I really don't see a correlation, but the relationship I see is unseemly.
Hey, does prevailing wage apply if the contractor works on a park? I mean, I just got an invitation to bid on a park remodel.
Well, is the park owned by a government agency?
Well, it's a homeowners association, but the place was originally funded by the government.
Prevailing wage might apply if the entire financing of the project was provided through government contracts.
The homeowners association is going to pay this job.
Well, it sounds like it might not be a prevailing wage job. It's not the government.
It's a job through a big-time developer. The problem is, I don't like to work with him. It's too much of that sexual harassment.
Well, who sexually harasses who?
This developer, $9 bill, is always pinching my younger coworkers' breasts. He's feeling their muscles. He told me that I look good in yellow neon.
A $9 bill. We've heard about him on a few episodes of this show, particularly those involving Lisa Glickman or the project he built called As Seen on Color TV.
Yeah, $9 bill. He showed me some of those pictures of As Seen on Color TV. It's really out there with spaceship landed and the retro ranch.
If you want my opinion, all of these overpriced developments and listings are over with. Literally nothing is selling in the over $3 million range, let alone some of the lesser priced listings.
Man, is construction gonna slow down? I mean, because I'm still pretty busy.
We may have an economic crisis in 2020. The housing market could shut down. Rates have gone up. There are now limited deductions on home loan interest rates. No deductions anymore for residential property tax. All of these government shutdowns aren't helping either. The economy's losing a lot of money.
Oh, man, child of a lesser deviant. How can I invest in safety training? Buy workers' compensation insurance? Ugh. And pay employer taxes if we're about to have another shutdown in construction where everybody moves out of state to find another profession.
Well, bad economies and deteriorating conditions in the industry don't excuse the industry from having to comply with labor laws.
Maybe I should be an employee.
Did you feel you were always paid right when you were an employee?
Jesus Artores, no, I felt like they paid me what they felt like paying me when they felt like paying me. And a guy like $9 bill, he felt me up.
There's a lot of feeling. Look, there's a lot of backlash about too many laws in California. Not like the same laws don't exist in the whole country. But if employers were doing everything right, we wouldn't have these lawsuits.
What about so-called employees? Those guys you mentioned with the neat color F-150 truck and the guy who does Hummers, has a Hummer, they showed up whenever they wanted. If they wanted to leave early, they came at 7. If they had something else to do, they came at 9, 10, sometimes even 11. And I tell them how to do something, and they did it another way.
Jaime, if you had a more formal environment paying employees by check, for instance, and actually taxing them, maybe there would not be this weird, illegal, invalid concept they were paid by cash because they were independent contractors, even though they weren't, so you couldn't come down on them. Go down on them in a way that allowed you to actually manage them.
That's a good point, but if I did all that, those guys would just have gone to another contractor.
I get quite a few calls every week from construction workers who want to file a case, and I have clients who are construction workers. There are plenty of them out there who want to be taxed, want to have workers' compensation insurance, want to have sick days.
Senor Carl, you've been in the business for a long time, no? You know how it is. If a contractor doesn't have work, their crew goes and they work for somebody else. I'm not rich enough to have them work in my backyard sanding metal dorsals when things slow down.
There's a lot of political talk these afternoons, blaming everything on a political party, even a good one. And Remus Helms' cosplay ostrich ranch might be sort of like, racial scapegoating in the old days. The lesson here is we need to follow the law and stop trying to cast blame on others.
You might be right. You might be wrong. It might be a lunatic you're looking for. Remus Helms, maybe?
There's something that bothers me in the construction industry, and it's strong-arming people for payment. Generally, someone shows up asking for a signature immediately or payment immediately. They shove a resin mold and clipboard in your face. Not a resin mold. It doesn't matter if you haven't inspected the work and the city hasn't inspected the work and you haven't had time to go back to the original contract to see if the amount being asked for is appropriate in the contract or it wasn't already paid.
You know how it is. I have to get a check so I can cash it at the bank and pay the workers. Sometimes my suppliers I pay and pay no taxes, though.
Responsibility. You're a business owner. You should be adequately funded, so you're not putting customers through that. And of course, there should not be cashing checks to pay employees in cash. Avoid payroll taxes and avoid your own taxes.
I can't report all those checks like income. I can't deduct the workers' pay from my taxes. I pay them in cash money.
You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. Jaime's issues are typical of a lot of small business owners and contractors. If you have a real case, maybe if you were, for instance, experienced some racial discrimination or sexual harassment by a woman at Z Gallery, we have some employees we represent that had that happen. Give us a call at 877-525-0700. If you think that too much was taken out of your paycheck, at FPI Management. For rent credits, 877-525-0700. We also have turnkey vacation rentals where people weren't paid meal breaks, rest breaks. They were fraudulently told that I had a class action going against them with my client when I don't. Please call 877-525-0700 if those circumstances apply to you or any other situation for sexual harassment, race discrimination, wages owed, please call me. I'm Karl Gerber, workplace lawyer. I've been doing this for over 25 years. When we come back, we're going to find out more from Jaime about his problems trying to run a small business in the construction industry where no one seems to pay anyone with payroll taxes and things like that. So we'll be back in just a second to hear more about that on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Always get the job done with a hammer, nails and a drill. They make their work look like
The Employment Lawyers Group is a results-driven law firm whose goal is to get the right result for the client. They have represented employees with a high rate of success since 1993 throughout the state of California. They're only paid and if they are able to collect money from the employer, so there's not any upfront fees or costs in order to hire them. They have represented thousands of employees who've been terminated from their jobs, sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or are owed wages in an individualized or group basis such as a class action. Call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have operators standing by. They can also be reached at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Hire them and make your workplace problem theirs to solve.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Karl Gerber, a real workplace lawyer. You know, EPI is actually a good thing for employers. It's employers' liability insurance, and it covers situations when people get sued for discrimination. Maybe that's something my guest Jaime should have. Look, operating a business illegally, it leads to endless problems. It's like all those movies about someone who starts off committing a minor crime or maybe something they should have reported, and then they end up doing even worse things to have the little indiscretion kept secret.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could hire all my people through the agency, but they charge 40% more than I pay the workers.
Why does everything have to be a cop-out? Why can't you, as a guy who might be in business another 20 or 25 years, just figure out how to abide by labor laws?
Because I'm good at building. I can't get into all those laws.
I've got to be honest with you, Jaime. When I hear that, I can't help but wonder if I'm talking to someone who isn't living up to the standard of care in all respects of their life. They're cutting corners all over.
Hey, it's just papers.
I seen you and your crew in action. There was the day we were ready to pour, and I asked why you didn't epoxy the rebar into the existing foundation, and you said you forgot.
I didn't know that you wanted to do that.
The plans called for attachment to the slab, but it's also sort of standard practice. Yeah, there's that, but there's also the thing where the pump truck was on its way, and your guys didn't spread the concrete bonding adhesive. I ended up jumping into the pit and doing it myself.
Hey, they were busy with the forms, and then you said I should take off the dobies and get rid of them.
Yeah, the dobies, those cute little 2 inches you found laying around were on the sides of where the pour would be. Every one of those creates a connection to new concrete. Besides all those connections expanding at what is shown through on the other side of that poured-in-place wall. Unplanned expansion joints and an unsmooth finish.
Okay. I mean, we skip a lot of steps, but I never said my crew was perfect.
These wonderful guys you have working for you who refuse to permit tax withholdings from their checks don't exactly follow industry standards, look at plans, or think about what they're doing. Are you sure you're getting the best workers the way you operate?
Hey, listen, I could go out and I could pay everybody $30 an hour. I mean, listen, the guy with the F-150, he makes $25.
Candidly, I don't think he's worth anymore. He doesn't read plans. He shows up when he pleases, and he doesn't take the time to set up for a safe cut.
Yeah, I've done other projects too, but nobody cares about all that.
I'm concerned that nobody cares about unsafe working practices, methods of construction likely to cause concrete separation, and an unsightly appearance, not to mention probable destruction in an earthquake, slight earth moving, or over a period of, more than a few months.
Yeah, but none of that stuff ever happens.
Jaime, do you go back to your jobs and check up on them in a year, 5 years later, 10 years later? Concrete applications should last 50 years. I've seen plenty that are in jeopardy after a year to 3 years, not to mention rust coming up. If you cut corners on your labor practices, that's a reflection of your work product.
Who has time for all that? Look, maybe I should just forget about construction and get into the dynamic new field of sanitary napkin database management. I bet they could use a bilingual person like me, see?
I do agree there are quite a few openings in that field. You would, however, be starting at the bottom. It might only pay $25 an hour.
But who knows, maybe in a couple of years, I could be up to 6 figures managing a good-sized database of sanitary napkin uses.
Well, maybe. Are you thinking of changing careers because it's too hard to deal with the labor laws and the laws in running a construction business, not to mention the skill and strength needed to do the construction?
Okay, listen, there's something else that I want to mention. I don't subscribe to it or anything, but it was laying around my dentist's office. I wasn't getting good reception on my phone at the time.
What was laying around? Remus Helms product mold?
How do you know? that was in the bathroom. It was laying around by the couches, and there was a copy of the Sanitary. There was a contribution by Myron Alfombra, pronounced and spelled differently. The rag said his scientists were experimenting on using a few different things to make an everlasting sanitary napkin. Whew. They looked at asbestos and mortar, but decided stucco mix was one of the best substances to use.
My word! Stucco mix flakes off like there's no tomorrow. Out of all the masonry materials, it's got the most amount of sand. Imagine that getting into people's bodies. Alfombra must be stopped.
Hey, I was thinking with all my experience in construction, maybe I could help them find the right materials for that product.
First of all, there is no right material. Second of all, remember, this is the same man who designed an ever-growing Berber toupee that's actually nylon.
There's a job I might be taking for a Nuru massage clinic.
Is that a really popular business around town these days? Now, this is episode 43, and there are 2 guests who brought that up, and we've had 30 guests. That means...
Wow, 6.67% of the guests on the show have dealings with the Nuru massage clinic.
Actually, 3 guests, because Remus Helms was involved in one of those.
10%. Speaking of Remus Helms, I believe he conceived Henita Orchid Helms at the Nuru massage clinic that I might be working on.
Oh, yeah, that's Dombass's office. He works in the back of the storefront.
Well, you see, they want to make a few upgrades on their HVAC system. With it being so cold lately, I mean, you know, a lot of naked people are in there.
I'd rather not think about that.
Yeah, it's a suspended ceiling and the ductwork is underneath the foam tiles. Customers are getting tired of noise carrying.
Carrying where? Into Dombass's office? Like he's got some client in there he's ripping off and they hear the nefarious conduct going on in the Nuru massage room?
Nah, Dombass doesn't care about that. He sort of likes the noises, if you know what I mean. It's the other customers that are wanting their privacy.
I can see this permit application where it says purpose of construction. It will say to eliminate moaning sounds oozing in from one Nuru massage room to the other, but not necessarily the back office being rented out by a disreputable lawyer.
Well, those sounds are pretty crazy, but I'm not putting that in there.
Are there permits for this?
I told the owner, Nasuki, a very famous Nuru nurse, that if she wanted the job to be inspected, it's gonna cost her a little extra.
And naturally, she opted for a lack of inspection or those extra costs for complying with the law.
Hey, I'm just doing my job. In the end, it's the customer's choice.
No, it's the law if you're doing the kind of work you're doing over there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna blow right through this job. I'll do it by code, even if the customers don't have permits.
Are you going to do this work at night when the building inspectors might not be around?
I asked when the best time to do this job might be because I know they're a business and all, but they said they're open from like 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. So, there's really no right time to do the work because they won't be open.
They're going to continue their work while people are changing around the ductwork, putting in a new heating and air conditioning system, maybe moving a few walls.
I know their services might be distracting. Actually, some of my guys might like looking. We're gonna use some painter's plastic to section off the different rooms when we take the walls down.
You're going to use that thin stuff to section off the Nuru massage rooms?
I mean, we could use something thicker, like maybe 6 mil.
Why not just use a bunch of garbage bags? Who cares about the privacy of the Nuru massage with hot oils and a naked masseuse?
I mean, that's a good point, but come on, Mr. Carl. It's better to use painter's plastic. I'll get a whole 400-foot roll.
Nonetheless, that stuff is a little more than 1 mil thick, or about 3/100th of an inch.
Wow, if one of my guys is standing in the reception area in the middle of the store, they'll be able to see everything.
Imagine a city inspector walking in on that.
Maybe I better not take this job.
Blow it off.
I'd rather hand the job off to somebody else.
Do you feel you can start paying your employees through payroll, maybe? Get workers' comp?
I don't know. There's a lot. First, I've got to find people who will put up with being taxed.
This is too much. I got to cut this down. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, heard every time on this station from 7 to 8 on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We'll be back next week, and it'll be even funnier. Thanks for listening.
This show furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.